Something has slipped into our solar system. Something vast, silent, and uninvited. It isn't just another rock wandering through space, but an object whose speed, angle, and brightness don't behave like anything we have catalogued before. Some scientists call it a comet. Others whisper a different word, vessel. What if 3I Atlas is not a natural fragment at all? What if it is being guided? What if its strange trajectory is less about chance and more about intention? Imagine a craft disguised as ice and dust, drifting innocently until it is close enough to watch us. Imagine an ancient technology, set adrift from another civilization, now quietly adjusting its path as it brushes past our sun. Imagine a messenger, or perhaps a warning, written in the geometry of an orbit. Each possibility grows more dramatic. Could it be an observation post, cataloguing a young species barely aware of its place in the cosmos? Could it be a relic from a civilization older than humanity itself, set loose to wander until it found new eyes to see it? Or could it be something far more dangerous, a patient machine waiting for a signal, its control hidden until the moment it is revealed? To call it coincidence is to ignore the rhythm in its arrival. To call it random is to overlook the precision of its movement. Something is happening in our skies, and the window to understand it is already closing. Tonight, we step into the mystery of 3I Atlas. Because the question isn't whether it is real, it is whether it is alive. Chapter 1. It arrived from nowhere. A fragment of ice, rock and mystery, slipping into our solar system like a stranger at the edge of a quiet village. Astronomers gave it a name, 3I Atlas, but names do little to ease the discomfort of the unfamiliar. For all our confidence in the maps of the heavens, for all our catalogues of asteroids and comets, this one behaved in ways that should not have been possible. What do we call an object that breaks the rules we thought were unbreakable? What if the cosmos itself is showing us that our categories, neat and tidy, were never built to contain the truth? At first glance, 3I Atlas seemed like just another comet. It trailed a faint, hazy tail, brightened briefly as it approached the sun, and fractured into smaller pieces under the relentless heat. But the closer astronomers looked, the more uneasy the story became. Its path through space was not like the long arcs of familiar comets bound to the sun's pull. Instead, it rushed in on a hyperbolic trajectory, fast, unbound, as if flung from the deep darkness between stars. Why should this matter? Because the odds are staggering. Our solar system has drifted for billions of years, surrounded by emptiness so vast it defies imagination. And yet, in the span of a single human lifetime, not one but multiple interstellar visitors umwama before it, 3I Atlas after, have cut through our skies. What are the chances that two such anomalies should pass so quickly one after another? Coincidence begins to strain under the weight of repetition. And then there is the brightness. Comets dim and flare according to predictable laws of physics, their surfaces evaporating as sunlight strikes them. But 3I Atlas glittered with unusual intensity, its fragments reflecting light in ways more precise, more deliberate than chance would suggest. Was this simply a quirk of its icy composition, or something more unsettling, like panels or surfaces designed to catch light? Every answer breeds another question. If 3I Atlas is merely a natural comet, why does it mimic the behavior of machines? If it is artificial, why cloak itself in the body of a comet at all? What purpose could such disguise serve, drifting unannounced into a young system filled with eyes just learning to see? Some astronomers argued for patience, that natural explanations always emerge even if slowly, but others whispered another possibility, that what we witnessed was not just a fragment of cosmic debris, but a vessel of intent, a craft designed to look ordinary, passing through unnoticed until curious minds began to see the pattern. And yet, if it is artificial, one question dwarfs the rest. Who, or what, is at the controls? Is it alive, still adjusting its course with hidden precision, or is it ancient and abandoned, a relic adrift on momentum alone? Could 3I Atlas be the evidence we have long awaited proof that we are not alone, or is it only the ghost of something greater, a broken probe launched by a civilization long dead? The answers remain hidden in silence. But the silence itself is haunting, because it forces us to look again at the sky and ask how much of what we see is truly natural, and how much might be carefully disguised. And if 3I Atlas is the object that should not exist, then what other impossibilities are already on their way toward us, unseen in the dark? Chapter 2. What do we make of a traveler that moves as though it knows where it is going? Most comets wander in loyal arcs around the sun, tethered by gravity's invisible leash, their journeys repeating in cycles we can chart centuries in advance. But 3I Atlas was different. Its path was not a circle, Not even an elongated ellipse, but a hyperbolic dash through the solar system, a line of escape rather than belonging. In that alone, it already stood apart. Yet as scientists traced its trajectory, another, deeper strangeness revealed itself. The object did not behave like a body bound only by nature's forces. Its course seemed adjusted. Why should a comet shift when it should only fall? Why would an object born of ice and stone, countless ages old, move with the subtlety of intention? For most comets, their path is shaped by two masters, the pull of gravity and the push of sunlight. Gravity draws them along predictable curves. The pressure of solar radiation and the release of gases from their heated surfaces cause faint deviations. These deviations are known, measured, and accounted for in the equations that govern celestial mechanics. But in the case of 3I Atlas, the deviation was more than faint. It was noticeable, consistent, and most troubling of all, it did not perfectly align with the explanation science offered. Astronomers first suspected outgassing, the common culprit. As comets warm near the sun, volatile ices beneath their crust vaporize, creating jets of gas that push them ever so slightly, like steam from a hidden nozzle. Yet 3I Atlas did not outgas in the way it should have. The fragments that broke from its body glowed with an intensity that suggested controlled bursts, and the adjustments of its orbit appeared almost purposeful. Could the jets have fired in ways too regular, too precise, to be random? Is it possible that what looked like ice evaporating was in fact something else? Something like propulsion? The question unsettles. Because if propulsion lurks beneath the mask of outgassing, then the comet is no longer merely drifting. It is moving with intent. The distinction between a rock and a vessel is hidden in that single word, intent. Rocks wander, vessels navigate. Imagine the view from above. The solar system spread like a clockwork map. Planets circle their star in obedient rhythm. Moons swing faithfully around their parents. Asteroids cluster in belts. Comets dive in and out like scattered sparks. Amid this dance, 3I Atlas cuts across the stage not with the shuffle of chance but with the stride of direction. To some it seemed as though the object were tracing a path chosen long before we noticed it. But chosen by whom, and for what purpose? The paradox deepens when we remember this. 3I Atlas was not alone in its strangeness. Only a few years earlier, another visitor had caused similar whispers. Oumuamua, the first recognized interstellar object. Like 3I Atlas, it arrived unbound, raced past the sun, and slipped away. And like 3I Atlas, it too shifted in ways that defied easy explanation. At the time, some scientists dared to suggest that Oumuamua might be artificial. Most dismissed the claim. Coincidence, they said. A natural rock behaving oddly. But then came 3I Atlas, echoing the mystery. Two interstellar visitors, back to back, both with paths that bent the rules. How many coincidences must occur before coincidence no longer satisfies? Is it possible that these objects are part of a larger pattern? Glimpses of something we cannot yet perceive? The implications ripple outward. If 3I Atlas navigated intentionally, then its hyperbolic path was not merely an accident of cosmic ejection. It was a trajectory with design. To fly through a young system, graze its star, and slip away again is to follow a script. Perhaps it is the script of observation, a reconnaissance route chosen to maximize visibility. Perhaps it is the path of endurance, using the star's energy to power or recalibrate machinery hidden within. Or perhaps it is the geometry of communication, the orbit itself serving as a signal to any who are watching. We must then ask, what kind of intelligence would choose such a path? The idea that a civilization might launch probes disguised as comets is not as far-fetched as it sounds. To travel between stars requires survival across unimaginable timescales. A fragile vessel would decay, a shining beacon would attract attention, but a body of rock and ice? That would endure, camouflaged among countless others, blending into the background of cosmic debris. If an alien civilization wished to explore unseen, what better disguise could there be? And so the strange path of 3I Atlas becomes doubly strange. It is both anomalous, defying the expectations of natural physics, and camouflaged, hiding its anomaly behind the most ordinary mask the universe provides. A paradox, to be obvious and invisible at once. Could this paradox itself be the point? We must remember that observation is not always about communication. To watch is to remain silent, to take note, to study without disturbance. What if the path of 3I Atlas was carved not to speak, but to see? Passing near the sun illuminates the solar system in ways no other vantage point can. A probe might harvest not only data on the star but also the electromagnetic signatures of every planet in its grasp, Earth included. From that vantage, entire worlds could be scanned, catalogued, and assessed without ever drawing closer than necessary. And if this is so, then another question follows. Was its path chosen to observe us specifically, or was our discovery of it merely an accident, a side effect of technology we happened to possess at the right time? Consider the timing. Humanity's telescopes have only recently gained the power to detect faint interstellar visitors. Before now, countless others could have slipped past unnoticed. Why then do we notice now? Is it coincidence that our gaze matures just as objects like Oumuamua and 3I Atlas appear? Or is it design, as if their path was calculated to intersect not only our solar system but our awareness? The thought is unnerving, that the universe might contain intelligence capable of predicting our development, of knowing when to arrive so that we would see. That kind of foresight is not the work of chance. It is the fingerprint of a mind that understands not only physics but psychology, not only orbits but curiosity. Is it possible that we were meant to notice? The strange path across the stars, then, becomes a mirror. We look at it and see more than data. We see ourselves reflected in the questions it forces us to ask. If it is only a comet, then it is an extraordinary comet, one whose oddities push the limits of our science. But if it is not merely a comet, then it is something greater still, a sign that intelligence is not confined to Earth. In both cases, our understanding expands. In both cases, the familiar map of the heavens is redrawn. But the silence remains. No signals, no messages, no confirmations. Only the faint glimmer of fragments sliding outward into the void, carrying with them the unanswered question, why here? Why now? Why this path? And so, the strange path of 3I Atlas leaves us at a crossroads. We can explain it as anomaly, tuck it neatly into the margins of natural law, and let the mystery dissolve. Or we can allow the possibility that it is more a controlled journey across the stars, a deliberate intrusion into our neighborhood. The choice is ours. But whichever path we take, the object itself continues on its way, indifferent to our debates, silent as stone, steady as shadow. And if this object was indeed controlled, then we must ask, by what hand and toward what destination? Chapter 3. Humanity has never been alone beneath the sky. Since the first fires were lit on the plains and deserts of prehistory, strange lights have traced their paths above us, leaving awe, terror, and wonder in equal measure. Long before telescopes, long before equations and charts, people looked upward and saw the heavens alive with omens. The stars seemed fixed, eternal, but comets and wandering objects broke that stability. They were the cosmic intruders, unpredictable, uninvited, and deeply unsettling. Why do we fear the visitors that streak across our skies? Why, even now, do they stir in us a primal unease? For most of recorded history, a comet was never just a comet. It was an omen, a message, a divine warning written in fire. The Babylonians recorded them on clay tablets, linking their appearances to the rise and fall of kings. In China, meticulous astronomers charted their paths for over 2 millennia, assigning each a place in the grand pattern of fate. In medieval Europe, their sudden flares of light were taken as harbingers of war, plague, or divine punishment. But what if these ancient interpretations, cloaked in myth and superstition, were closer to the truth than we admit? What if not all visitors were natural? What if among the countless icy wanderers, one or two carried intention, appearing, vanishing, and shaping human history in ways we never understood? Consider Halley's Comet, perhaps the most famous of all. Its return every 76 years created a rhythm that spanned generations, appearing in times of upheaval and transformation. In 1066 it blazed in the sky before the Norman conquest of England, depicted in the Bayeux Tapestry as a fiery herald of battle. Was this merely coincidence? Or could it be that certain objects deliberately pass by at key moments, their timing precise, their paths chosen? It is easy to dismiss such thoughts as the product of imagination. Yet the universe has a way of challenging our certainty. For every comet whose orbit we can predict, there are others whose origins remain unclear. Visitors from deep space arrive without warning, crossing the threshold of our solar system like strangers knocking at the door. Until very recently, we had no way of knowing they were even there. How many arrived in centuries past, unrecorded, unseen by anything but the eyes of poets and priests? If 3I Atlas is truly artificial, it is not the first cosmic visitor to change the way we see the sky. It is part of a long lineage, a thread woven through human history. Perhaps what differs now is not the visitor itself, but our ability to interpret its presence. But here lies the paradox. In every age, we have reimagined these objects in the image of our own fears. Ancient people saw them as signs from gods or demons. Renaissance thinkers viewed them as warnings to kings. In the modern era, we call them anomalies, interstellar bodies, or quietly possible probes. Different names, same unease. Why does each generation project meaning onto these wandering strangers? Is it simply human nature to fill the silence with stories, or is the silence itself the story? Imagine a timeline stretching back through millennia. On it are dots, moments when sudden lights tore through the heavens. Each dot is both a mystery and a mirror, reflecting not only the visitor but the state of humanity watching below. The Mayans etched them into glyphs, aligning them with cycles of time. The Greeks spoke of hairy stars and fiery spears hurled by the gods. The Romans feared them as portents of empire's decline. And always at the center was the same haunting truth: comets do not belong. They arrive, they dazzle, and they vanish into the darkness. But if belonging is the measure, what does that say about 3i Atlas? It too did not belong. Its hyperbolic path marked it as a stranger to the sun, just as those ancient portents may have been. Could it be that what the ancients witnessed was not only natural debris, but perhaps something more deliberate, controlled visitors cloaked in the same disguise we see today? This question grows sharper when we consider how easily human memory mythologizes the extraordinary. Suppose for a moment that a probe passed close to Earth centuries ago, disguised as a comet. What would people have seen? A blazing light in the sky, unfamiliar and terrifying. How would they describe it? As fire, as a dragon, as a divine spear? How would they remember it? As a story, a prophecy, an omen? In time, the data of observation becomes the poetry of myth. But behind the myth may still lie a reality we have not yet dared to uncover. Is it possible then that 3i Atlas is only the latest in a series of visitors? A chapter in a story we have been misreading for thousands of years? The strangeness of history gives weight to the thought. In the 14th century, during the outbreak of the Black Death, chronicles describe a great comet blazing in the sky. Some claimed it dropped poison into the air, bringing plague to the people. Absurd, perhaps. But what if the fear was not entirely misplaced? What if the connection between strange celestial visitors and earthly turmoil is not just coincidence, but evidence of some deeper rhythm we have not yet recognized? Of course, science offers us clarity. We now understand that comets are icy remnants from the early solar system, fragments left behind from the birth of planets. They are not omens, not divine warnings, not agents of fate. And yet, even science cannot fully explain why interstellar objects like Oumuamua and 3i Atlas arrive when they do, or why their behavior so often pushes the edges of our expectations. What if the ancients, in their fear, grasped an essential truth that visitors from the sky do matter, that their arrival is significant, and that dismissing them as chance may be the greater illusion? The history of cosmic visitors is, in the end, the history of our relationship with the unknown. Each age has given them names, clothed them in meaning, and tried to fit them into the fabric of understanding. But perhaps the visitors themselves have not changed. Perhaps only our perception has evolved, moving from myth to mathematics, from superstition to suspicion. And so, when 3i Atlas appeared, blazing briefly before disintegrating, it did what countless visitors have done before. It reminded us of how fragile our certainty is. It reminded us that the sky has never been empty, that we have always been watched by lights that come and go without explanation. If history has taught us anything, it is this: the universe sends visitors, and we struggle to understand them. Some we dismiss as natural, others we sanctify as divine. But now, for the first time, we must ask a new question. What if they are neither? What if they are natural in form but artificial in control, relics of civilizations older than our own, passing silently from star to star? And if this is true, then the history of cosmic visitors is not just a history of objects in the sky. It is a history of encounters, subtle and hidden, stretching across centuries, a history that suggests we may have never been as isolated as we believed. The story of 3i Atlas is only the latest echo in this long record, but its echoes force us to confront a deeper possibility. If history is filled with such visitors, then perhaps we are not merely observers of a passing stranger, we are participants in a dialogue too vast for us to yet understand. And so the question lingers, as it always has. If the visitors of the past were not all natural, then who has been walking the long roads of the stars, and why do they keep returning to us? Chapter 4. What if the universe hides its most advanced technologies in plain sight, concealed not in gleaming metal or radiant light, but beneath the familiar shrouds of rock, ice, and dust? What if the very comets we watch streak across the night sky are not just remnants of ancient creation but cloaked machines wearing nature as their camouflage? The paradox is unsettling. The closer something resembles the ordinary, the greater its ability to pass unnoticed. To consider 3i Atlas as artificially controlled is to imagine a disguise so perfect that it deceives the entire discipline of astronomy. For if technology is hidden within this object, it has chosen the most convincing mask possible, the guise of a comet. No one questions a comet's presence. They come and go, streaking through the inner solar system before returning to the dark. They shed tails of dust and gas, they fragment under the sun's heat, and they follow elliptical arcs dictated by physics. But what if one of these familiar visitors behaved just differently enough to raise suspicion, while still clinging to its natural camouflage? Would we be able to tell the difference between accident and intent, between ice breaking under solar heat and an engine altering course? And this is where the disguise becomes profound. The greatest trick of any technology is to appear not like technology at all, but like nature. How would such a disguise work? The key lies in mimicry. Nature is filled with examples. The moth whose wings resemble leaves, the fish whose colors blend with coral, the predator who waits unseen because it looks like the background itself. If life on Earth has mastered camouflage through evolution, could an alien intelligence have done the same with technology? Could a craft wandering interstellar space have coated itself in a crust of ice and dust, intentionally mimicking a comet's dirty, frozen surface? The idea is not entirely alien to us. Humanity has long used camouflage to hide machines in the natural world. Warplanes are painted to resemble the sky, submarines adopt the colors of the ocean depths, and satellites are designed to appear no brighter than ordinary stars when crossing the heavens. Our strategies aim at the same principle, invisibility through familiarity. The most effective disguise is not absence but blending. In this light, 3i Atlas resembling a comet would be the perfect infiltrator. But then comes the deeper question. Is its strange behavior a flaw in the disguise? Or is it the clue left behind intentionally, like a glimmer of movement that gives away a predator in the grass? Consider the anomalies that have already drawn suspicion. Why did 3i Atlas fragment so unexpectedly, as though its shell could not contain the forces inside? Why did its trajectory and acceleration resist simple explanations based only on ice sublimation? Was it truly falling apart? Or was it shedding a layer, rearranging its disguise, changing the mask it wears before human eyes? Here lies the haunting paradox. If technology is wrapped in rock and ice, every fracture becomes ambiguous. It could be a natural process of disintegration, or it could be an artificial maneuver, an adjustment, an unfolding, a release. Which is more unsettling, that it is a simple comet breaking apart, or that it is a machine reconfiguring itself for reasons we cannot fathom? The possibility of technology in disguise invites us to question our assumptions about what advanced machinery might look like. Humanity tends to imagine alien technology as sleek, metallic, and efficient, reflecting our own industrial designs. Yet this is only a projection of ourselves. Why should intelligence born of another star follow the same aesthetic choices? Perhaps the highest sophistication is not to shine, but to vanish. Not to dazzle, but to remain unseen. Could an alien probe be designed not to stand apart from its environment, but to merge with it entirely, to appear indistinguishable from the natural detritus of the cosmos, rocks, ice and dust drifting endlessly between stars? If so, we must ask, how many other such objects have we already catalogued, dismissing them as lifeless debris? The disguise, in this sense, is not simply clever engineering. It is a philosophy. It is technology aligned with patience, secrecy, and survival. But if 3i Atlas is truly cloaked technology, another riddle emerges. Why hide at all? Is the camouflage meant to deceive us, or to deceive something else? Perhaps the object has traveled longer than human history itself, drifting across civilizations yet unborn and empires long extinct. In such a vast journey, it may have encountered other dangers, predators of its own kind, hostile machines or species whose attention must be avoided. In this reading, its disguise is not about us at all. Humanity is incidental. We are merely the latest species to mistake its mask for truth. Yet if the disguise is meant for us, then the implications become darker. Could this object be watching, silently collecting information, studying a young civilization still fumbling with rockets and telescopes? What better way to observe than under the perfect cover of something ordinary? To move through our skies like just another comet, another pebble from space, never once revealing its true form until it chooses to. Another unsettling possibility arises. What if its disguise is not static but adaptive? What if the fragmentation we saw was not the end of the object but the beginning of a new phase? A probe shedding one skin for another, like a creature molting to grow. The debris could have been deliberate, released sensors, distributed fragments designed to scatter through space, each one a smaller node in a larger network. What appears to us as disintegration may in fact be replication. Here the thought grows almost unbearable. What if technology so advanced is indistinguishable from natural processes, to the point where our science cannot separate one from the other? What if every law of physics we think explains its behavior is only the outermost layer of its disguise? The disguise of 3i Atlas forces us to look inward too. Are we prepared to recognize intelligence when it doesn't look like us, when it doesn't shine in metal or blaze with obvious signals? Or will we keep dismissing it as ordinary, precisely because it looks so convincingly natural? History warns us of this blindness. When Europeans first landed on distant shores, some indigenous peoples reportedly failed to notice the ships approaching, because such things were so far outside their expectations that their minds simply could not register them. If something as vast as a ship could be overlooked, how much easier might we overlook an alien probe that looks exactly like what we expect, a comet, a fragment, a harmless rock? Could it be that our greatest weakness is not ignorance but assumption, the certainty that we already know what we are looking at? And so the disguise of 3i Atlas becomes more than speculation. It becomes a mirror. If technology can so perfectly masquerade as nature, then every comet that streaks through our sky might carry the same question. Are you what you seem, or are you more? The possibility is vast, unsettling, and strangely humbling. We search for signals in radio waves, for transmissions across the void. Yet what if the messages and machines of alien civilizations pass before our eyes daily, hidden beneath the very appearances we dismiss as ordinary? If 3i Atlas is indeed technology in disguise, then we are not merely observers of the cosmos. We are participants in a story already underway, though we do not yet know the role we play. And this leads us to the next more haunting question. If it is technology cloaked in cometary form, then what purpose does it serve? For what mission would such a disguise be crafted? And what is it doing here, now, in our sky? Chapter 5. What if the universe is already filled with machines older than humanity itself? Machines that drift silently between the stars, each one designed with a purpose beyond our comprehension. What if 3i Atlas is not just an object, not just an intruder from the interstellar dark, but a device carrying out a mission that has endured across cosmic centuries? If it is truly technology in disguise, then it is not enough to ask how it hides. The more profound question is why it exists at all. For every machine, no matter how alien, is made with intention. Could it be a messenger? For as long as humanity has looked outward, we have dreamed of sending signals across the void. The Voyager probes, now billions of kilometers from Earth, carry golden records engraved with greetings, music, and images, a fragile attempt at communication with whatever intelligence might find them. These spacecraft are not weapons, they are emissaries. They are meant to speak on our behalf long after we are gone. If 3i Atlas is such a messenger, then its strange path across our skies may not be random at all. Perhaps it is part of a network of interstellar envoys, scattered like seeds through the galaxy. Each one drifts silently until it stumbles across a civilization, recording data, storing impressions, and perhaps even transmitting signals back to its creators. What if the fragmentation we observed was not destruction, but the dispersal of information, a deliberate scattering of sensors to maximize its awareness? In this reading, 3i Atlas is not a threat, but a silent witness. But what if it is not here to greet us? What if its mission is older, colder, and entirely indifferent to whether we exist? Could it be a surveyor? Humanity itself has sent machines to map the surfaces of Mars, to scan the icy crust of Europa, to study the atmospheres of Saturn and Jupiter. We do not expect these probes to be welcomed or understood by the worlds they study. They are indifferent, scientific, detached. Their purpose is to gather data, not to interact. If 3i Atlas is an alien surveyor, then it may be here to record the structure of our solar system, to measure its planets, its resources, its energy, and if so, then its disguise as a comet is not merely camouflage, it is necessity, for the best surveyors remain unseen by the life they study. In this light, the object becomes like a cosmic cartographer, tracing the outlines of our star system as casually as a hand brushing over a map. The unsettling truth is that we would never know if such surveys have been conducted countless times before. Yet there is a darker possibility. What if it is not a messenger, nor a surveyor, but a sentinel? Throughout history, great empires have placed watchtowers at their borders, silent guards who report the movements of those who cross. Perhaps 3i Atlas is one such watchtower, not of a nation but of a species, What if it is programmed to monitor, to listen, to watch civilizations rise and fall? And what if its very presence here is not coincidence, but a response? Could it be that the moment humanity lit up the sky with radio waves, with radar, with the spark of nuclear fire, the machine was drawn in from the dark? The thought is chilling, that we have already triggered attention we did not mean to attract. Or perhaps the object has a purpose more enigmatic still. Could it be a seed? Biologists know that life spreads by scattering seeds, tiny vessels carrying the essence of survival, drifting until they find fertile ground. What if alien machines do the same? What if 3i Atlas carries within it the code of another life, dormant and waiting? If so, then the fragmentation we saw may have been the first stage of germination. Instead of ending its journey, it may have just begun, it releasing microscopic payloads invisible to us to drift down into the worlds it passes. Is this how life begins across the stars? Not with a spark in a primordial ocean, but with a delivery system disguised as a comet? Some theories already suggest that Earth's life may have been seeded from beyond, carried here by icy fragments. If 3i Atlas is such a machine, then perhaps it is not alien in the sense we imagine, but kin, a relative from which our own story descends. Another question rises, more unsettling than all the others. Could it be a weapon? History warns us that where there is technology, there is often strategy, and where there is strategy, there is conflict. Weapons do not always appear as blades or guns. Sometimes they are traps, viruses, or poisons, hidden within forms too ordinary to suspect. If an alien intelligence desired to clear space of competitors, what better method than to send silent machines that look like comets, indistinguishable from the countless natural bodies already roaming the dark? A weapon that arrives unnoticed, its danger cloaked until the moment it fulfills its purpose. What purpose would that be? Perhaps to strike a planet with precise devastation, as natural impactors have done many times in Earth's history. Perhaps to release something more subtle, nanotechnology, a plague, a self-replicating swarm. We cannot know. What unsettles the mind is not certainty, but ambiguity. The comet's disguise makes every explanation possible, and therefore every possibility threatening. And yet the most haunting possibility of all is that we have misunderstood the question entirely. What if the purpose of the machine is not external, but internal? What if it is not serving its creators at all, but itself? Machines, given enough time, can evolve into something more than tools. They can become autonomous, drifting beyond the intentions of those who built them. A probe launched to survey might, after millions of years, reprogram itself, adapt, and find a new mission, its own mission. What if 3i Atlas is not the servant of an alien race, but an independent traveler carrying out a self-defined purpose that even its makers could not predict? In that case, its disguise as a comet might not be strategy, but identity. It no longer pretends to be a natural object, it has become one. Over eons it has absorbed fragments of ice and rock until machine and nature are indistinguishable. What if 3i Atlas is the child of both worlds, part artificial, part organic, a hybrid being that belongs neither fully to technology nor to nature, but to a new category entirely? If that is true, then the purpose of the machine may be far stranger than communication, observation, or destruction. Its purpose may be survival itself, an endless wandering across the stars in search of meaning. Perhaps the mission it follows is no longer written in its code but in its being. It exists to endure, to transform, to travel, and in this sense it mirrors us. For is not humanity itself a species that disguises its machines, that sends them outward to carry fragments of ourselves, hoping that something of us might survive in the endless night? Perhaps the purpose of the machine is the same as our own, to refuse silence, to reach outward, to leave behind a trace. And so we are left with questions more profound than answers. If 3i Atlas is a messenger, what message does it carry? If it is a surveyor, what does it measure? If it is a sentinel, what does it watch for? If it is a seed, what does it hope to grow? If it is a weapon, who is its target? And if it is self-created, what story does it tell of the future of machines like ours? No matter which possibility we entertain, one conclusion rises above all. The object's purpose, whatever it may be, is deliberate. Chance alone does not cloak technology so convincingly, nor guide its path across interstellar distances. There is intent in its being, even if we cannot yet fathom the intent itself. But this leaves us standing on the edge of a deeper abyss. For if there is intent, then there must also be a maker. The object implies its origin. The machine points back to the mind that forged it. And so the question becomes inescapable. If 3i Atlas is truly a machine, who built it, and why? Chapter 6. Every machine is a mirror. It reflects not only the purpose for which it was made, but also the hands, the minds, and the civilization that brought it into being. If 3i Atlas is more than rock and ice, if it is technology in disguise, then somewhere in the distant past, someone built it. And that truth is perhaps more unsettling than the object itself, for it forces us to confront a paradox. If the hands that made this machine are still alive, they are unimaginably advanced. If they are gone, then the machine is a ghost, an artifact drifting through eternity long after its makers turned to dust. Either possibility reshapes how we see our place in the universe. But what kind of beings could have created such a thing? To build a machine that can survive the journey between stars is no small feat. Even our most ambitious spacecraft struggle to endure decades in deep space. The Voyager probes, though still functioning, are already frail with age after less than half a century. 3i Atlas, by contrast, may have traveled for millions of years. That suggests a level of engineering beyond our imagination, materials that resist decay, systems that heal themselves, and designs meant not for centuries but for cosmic ages. So the first truth about the builders is this: they were masters of longevity. They knew how to craft not only for utility, but for survival. And yet survival alone cannot explain it. Why disguise technology as a comet? Why hide a machine in a cloak of ice and dust, designed to fool the eyes of other civilizations? Such design implies intelligence, yes, but also caution. Perhaps the builders were not conquerors or explorers in the human sense, but careful players in a universe filled with dangers. A species that survives long enough to build interstellar machines may learn to hide as much as it learns to build. Could it be that the hands behind 3i Atlas belonged to a people who feared being seen as much as they longed to see? What sort of universe must they have known, to craft machines in secret, disguised as nature itself? Another possibility emerges, that the builders were not flesh at all, but machines themselves. If a civilization creates self-replicating technology, then at some point, its machines may surpass it. A probe like 3i Atlas may not have been built by biological hands, but by other machines repeating a design passed down like a genetic code. In that case, the builders are not a people at all, but a lineage of machines spreading across the stars with no origin left to trace. And if this is true, then the object becomes even stranger, for its disguise as a comet would not be meant to fool us, but to protect itself from collisions, from predators, from cosmic accidents. The comet shell would be its armor, chosen not for deception, but for endurance. If it is technology birthed by technology, then 3i Atlas may be less a visitor from another civilization and more a child of evolution itself, an evolutionary branch of machines that has outlived its creators. But what if the builders were still flesh, still alive, still watching? If so, then they are no ordinary species. To send a machine across interstellar distances requires more than science. It requires patience. For even at great speeds, such journeys take thousands or millions of years. A civilization that builds probes like 3i Atlas must think not in years, not in centuries, but in epochs. It must have institutions, cultures, or perhaps even collective minds capable of sustaining purpose across timescales that dwarf human history. We must ask ourselves, could any human civilization endure long enough to do the same? Could we build something today, knowing it will not reach its destination until our species is forgotten? And if not, then perhaps we glimpse here the very difference between us and the hands that built it. They are not just technologically advanced, they are temporally advanced. They live not in the rhythm of centuries, but in the patience of stars. And what about intent? What values shaped these builders, that they would choose to send such a machine? Humanity's machines reflect our hopes and fears. We build telescopes because we long to see farther, satellites because we crave connection, weapons because we fear each other, and probes because we hope not to be alone. If 3i Atlas is artificial, then it too carries the values of its makers. Was it born of curiosity, like our Voyager? Was it born of fear, like a sentry guarding unseen borders? Or was it born of indifference, cast into the dark by creators for whom such acts were routine, as casual as a bird scattering seeds? The more we ask, the less the machine resembles mere technology, and the more it resembles a message. Not a message written in words, but in existence. By existing at all, 3i Atlas tells us something about those who made it, that they lived, that they built, that they reached beyond themselves. But what if the builders are gone? There is a haunting possibility that the hands that forged 3i Atlas no longer exist. Civilizations rise, flourish, and collapse. even stars themselves are born and die. If the makers vanished millions of years ago, then 3i Atlas is a relic, a tombstone drifting endlessly, carrying the memory of a people who will never again speak. In this case, the machine is not only an artifact, it is a tragedy, a reminder that even greatness does not guarantee survival. And yet, even in their absence, their machine speaks. It tells us that life beyond Earth was real. It tells us that intelligence can endure long enough to shape the cosmos. It tells us that the silence of the stars is not proof of emptiness, but perhaps only proof of distance and time. But there is one more possibility, stranger still. What if the builders were never like us at all? We imagine hands, minds, intentions, because we cannot think otherwise. But the universe may not be bound by our metaphors. The makers may have been forms of life we would not recognize as living. They may have been entities woven from plasma, or networks of consciousness spread through oceans, or intelligences housed in planetary crusts. To such beings, building a machine like 3i Atlas may have been no different from growing a tree or shedding a seed. If so, then calling them builders may be misleading. They did not build the machine, they birthed it. They did not design it, they grew it. And so the comet's disguise may not be camouflage at all, but simply its natural form, the way a seed carries its protective shell. Who built it? The question multiplies into countless answers, each more unsettling than the last. Perhaps it was flesh and blood, long gone. Perhaps it was machines, still alive. Perhaps it was life utterly alien to our imagination, leaving behind only fragments we mistake for technology. And in every possibility lies the same haunting truth. We are not alone in the act of creation. Somewhere, sometime, another intelligence reached into the dark, and what it left behind has now passed through our skies. Which leads to the next, inescapable question. If the hands that built it are real, if they are out there somewhere still, what else have they made and where are those creations now? Chapter 7. What if 3i Atlas is not alone? What if the object that slips quietly through our solar system is but a single messenger, a solitary scout of something larger, something hidden, an unseen fleet waiting in the abyss? The thought carries a haunting weight, for space is vast beyond imagination, yet emptiness does not guarantee solitude. The most terrifying thing about the dark is not its silence, but the suspicion that the silence is deliberate. If one object can masquerade as a comet, why not many? Why should we assume 3i Atlas is a rare outlier when it could be one thread in a woven tapestry, carefully spread across the galaxy? Fleets, after all, need not resemble armadas of gleaming starships. They could be disguised as the simplest of things: rocks, ice, drifting debris. A civilization advanced enough to cloak its technology could scatter thousands of such objects like seeds in a field, letting them drift unnoticed until they are needed. The night sky, then, may not be empty at all. It may be crowded, only we lack the eyes to see. But why would a fleet remain silent? Why move with the precision of purpose, yet conceal its presence in shadows? The answer may lie in a principle that has haunted human strategy since the dawn of warfare. Concealment is power. A silent fleet, unannounced and unobserved, holds an advantage over the loudest of invaders. If 3i Atlas were merely one unit in a coordinated system, its anonymity would not be a flaw, it would be the design. A predator need not roar in the forest when the prey is already within reach. And yet, silence does not always mean hostility. Could it be that these vessels, if vessels they are guardians, placed as sentinels along the cosmic highways? What if each drifting body we dismiss as ice and rock is in truth a watchtower of sorts, humming with sensors tuned to monitor the rise and fall of civilizations? Imagine the cosmos as a vast chessboard, and us as new players who have only just begun moving our pawns. Would the older players not wish to keep an eye on us, to see whether we follow the rules or break them? Still, another possibility presses in with chilling weight. What if the fleet is not waiting for us at all? What if it is waiting for a signal from elsewhere? The silence of the dark may not be a silence directed at us, but a silence between them, a stillness before motion. When armies sleep, they do not vanish. They merely hold their breath before the order comes. Could 3i Atlas have been roused from slumber, nudged on a trajectory toward our star, because the time for stillness is ending? And if it is not a single ship but one of many, what does that say about the scale of its makers? A lone machine could be explained as an experiment, a probe sent by curiosity. But a fleet suggests intention, strategy, and coordination. To scatter hundreds of such devices across light years would require mastery not only of engineering, but of patience. Civilizations younger than ours think in terms of decades, perhaps centuries. A fleet seeded into the galaxy suggests thinking in millennia. The silence, then, may not be emptiness. It may be the deep inhale of a species whose timescales make our histories look like fleeting sparks. Yet the greatest paradox lingers. If there is a fleet, why do we not see it? Why does the sky not betray more of these silent travelers? Perhaps the answer is simple. They hide in plain sight. For centuries, astronomers have catalogued comets, asteroids, and the cold detritus of planetary birth. Our records brim with names, numbers, and orbital charts. But what if among them, some are imposters? What if the difference between a comet and a machine lies not in its orbit, but in the secrets carried deep within its frozen heart? We have touched so few of these objects, we know them only as blurs of light and faint trails across detectors. The disguise could be perfect, because it is mundane. Who questions a rock in the sky? But then comes the darker thought. What if they want to be found, but only when we are ready? Perhaps 3i and others like it are not merely hidden. They are waiting to reveal themselves at the precise moment. A silent fleet does not remain silent forever. A dormant machine awakens when its timer ends, or when its makers return to check on it. Could we be living in the pause before an unveiling, where what appears ordinary will suddenly shift into the extraordinary? And so we stand, gazing into the cosmic sea, uncertain whether we are alone in watching or being watched. The stars burn as they always have, cold and remote. Yet now the silence feels less like peace and more like suspense. A silent fleet, if it exists, is not a promise of doom or salvation. It is simply possibility, suspended in the void. And perhaps the greatest fear is not that we will one day see their lights flicker on, but that they are already lit, and we are too blind to notice. What would happen then, if the silence ended? What if the fleet spoke, not with words, but with movement? Would the awakening be gentle or overwhelming? Chapter 8. What if silence is not the natural state of the cosmos, but only an interval, an intermission before the next act begins? What if 3i Atlas, drifting in apparent quiet, is not inert at all, but listening, waiting for a signal that has not yet arrived? The possibility that the machine is dormant, its mind asleep, should not comfort us, for dormancy implies awakening. Signals are the pulse of civilization. Humanity itself has filled the void with whispers of radio, television, and data streams, tiny sparks of communication bleeding into the endless dark. If we, in our infancy, already leak our presence into the stars, then what of a species millions of years ahead? Would they not use signals as levers, as keys, as awakeners? The notion is haunting, that the silence of 3i Atlas is conditional, that its apparent passivity is not its essence but its disguise. But what kind of signal could rouse a machine of this scale? Not a simple broadcast of static or light, but something deeper, something woven into the very fabric of physics. Could it be a burst of neutrinos, imperceptible to all but those built to detect them? Or a gravitational ripple, like a knock upon space-time itself? Perhaps the signal would not come from afar at all, but from the star it now approaches. What if the sun itself is the switch? When its warmth penetrates the icy shell, when radiation levels rise to a calculated threshold, does the machine awaken, like a sleeper stirred by dawn? If so, then what does this say of its purpose? A probe that wakes at starlight is not one that drifts aimlessly. It is one that seeks hosts, one that has been set upon a journey where suns are its milestones, each encounter a point to gather, to transmit, or to act. Our sun, then, is not a random meeting, but a deliberate stage, and we, living in its light, might not be the audience at all. We may only be incidental witnesses to a conversation that was never meant for us. Yet another question presses. What if the signal does not come from nature, but from intelligence? The galaxy may be seeded with sleepers, each awaiting the call of its creators. Somewhere, perhaps in a system thousands of light-years away, a civilization might send out a single pulse, and in response 1,000 silent wanderers could stir to life. A fleet that had slumbered for eons would suddenly rise, coordinated across the span of stars. Could 3i Atlas be such a piece, its awakening not dependent on what we do, but on a command sent long ago, still racing toward it? And then the darker speculation. What if the signal is not yet sent, because the senders are waiting for us? Imagine a machine that listens not for its makers but for the noise of a young civilization. Perhaps its task is to wait until it hears the unmistakable hum of technology, the radio leakage of cities, the restless chatter of species discovering fire in digital form. When the chatter grows loud enough, the signal it awaits is not external, it is us. Could our own voice be the alarm clock, rousing what sleeps in the dark? This possibility carries with it a cruel irony. We broadcast endlessly, unaware of who listens. Our satellites hum with endless conversations, our radars sweep across skies, our telescopes beam outward greetings of mathematics and music. If 3i Atlas is listening, then it already knows more about us than we would ever choose to share. It knows our languages, our conflicts, our ambitions, our fears. And perhaps when the sum of our noise reaches the threshold, it will no longer be a listener, it will become a respondent. But what would the awakening look like? Would it be subtle, invisible to all but the most sensitive instruments? A faint flicker of energy, a sudden deviation in its orbit, a silent burst of data sent outward? Or would it be dramatic, a shedding of disguise, the unfurling of machinery hidden beneath its icy shell? The image is almost unbearable, a comet-shaped shadow breaking open like a chrysalis, its fragments scattering as something new emerges, a machine no longer pretending to be rock. And then, of course, comes the hardest question. What happens after the awakening? If it is a messenger, it may transmit back to its makers. Here they are ready. If it is a guardian, it may test us, probing our defenses or offering cryptic lessons. If it is a harbinger, the awakening may be less a beginning than an end, the spark that calls others to arrive. The signal, then, is not just an alarm, it is a verdict. Yet in all this speculation, one truth remains: signals change everything. Once received, there is no returning to silence. We, as a species, know this intimately. Every message alters the sender and the receiver alike. The day 3i Tonentalus awakens, if it awakens, would be the day humanity steps irreversibly into the awareness of another. Whether that awareness is friendly or hostile, indifferent or purposeful, it will no longer be deniable. The silence of the cosmos, so comforting in its stillness, will have ended. And so we wonder, is the signal already on its way? Has it already brushed against 3i Atlas, unseen by our instruments, unnoticed by our astronomers? Or is it still racing through the void, a coded pulse that will one day cross paths with this silent traveler? For if there truly is an awakening signal, the only question that matters is this: when it comes, will we even recognize what has been awakened? Chapter 9. What if 3i Atlas is already trying to communicate and we have been too unobservant to notice? The universe is not patient, and neither are the machines that traverse it. A single probe drifting quietly may already have begun a conversation, its language encoded in patterns, in electromagnetic whispers, in orbital deviations too subtle for our instruments to register. The haunting question is not whether it will speak, but whether we will recognize the moment of contact when it comes. The first contact scenario is a paradox. The moment that could redefine humanity might arrive without ceremony. No bright lights, no booming signals, no sudden revelation. It could be a slight shift in trajectory, an anomalous pulse of radiation, a pattern of movement repeating with unmistakable intelligence. And yet, even subtle contact carries weight. A machine that signals its presence demonstrates not just life, but intention. It tells us that we are being observed, analyzed, and catalogued. And that realization reshapes every assumption we have ever made about solitude in the cosmos. But what if the message is not benign? What if this is not a greeting, but a warning? Across the history of our planet, the first encounter between civilizations has rarely been gentle. In human terms, contact often comes with conquest, disease, or displacement. If the hands that built 3i Atlas are capable of interstellar engineering, then they are already operating on scales we cannot imagine, with the ability to observe us without being seen. Their intentions, whether protective, indifferent, or hostile, are unknown. The machine may be an emissary, a scout, or the harbinger of something larger, something that has waited patiently for millennia. Could the probe itself be a test? Some scientists propose that extraterrestrial intelligence might not engage directly at first, but rather observe, measure, and assess. In this scenario, 3i Atlas would be our examiner, cataloguing our responses to natural phenomena, to our own technological output, and to the arrival of the object itself. Every signal we broadcast, every radar ping, every piece of information we inadvertently send into space could influence its judgment. And if that judgment is unfavorable, the probe might act not as a messenger, but as an enforcer of consequences we cannot yet predict. And yet, the possibility of contact is seductive. Imagine a civilization capable of building such machines, reaching across the stars with intelligence and patience beyond human comprehension. Their knowledge, their art, their science, all encoded in a vessel drifting silently through our solar system. What could we learn if communication is possible? Perhaps the probe carries a record, a message, or even instructions. Perhaps its creators intended it to awaken our curiosity, to guide us, to teach us. The first contact might be not an invasion, but an invitation to see beyond the limitations of our planet-bound imagination. But what if the first contact is irreversible? If the probe awakens, if it transmits, if it signals its makers, the consequences are beyond calculation. Humanity has never been prepared for the certainty of extraterrestrial awareness. A single pulse of data could alert a civilization capable of acting on interstellar scales. The silence we have taken for granted would end. There would be no retreat, no hiding, no undoing the moment we are observed. In this sense, every choice we make now to watch, to measure, to broadcast, is fraught with unseen risk. Consider the implications of a warning. If the machine is a sentinel or a scout, its purpose may be protective, guarding against species deemed too young, too reckless, or too unpredictable. The universe in this case is not a neutral place, but a place policed by intelligence far older and wiser than our own. And the arrival of 3i Atlas could signify that we have reached a threshold, that our civilization has made itself known, and that the response is already in motion. The warning may not come as a message, but as a measure, a shift in trajectory, a deployment of hidden instruments, or a subtle test of our readiness. Even in the scenario of benign contact, uncertainty remains. A message meant to enlighten could be misinterpreted. A gesture intended as peaceful might be read as threat. The vast gulf of time, language, and perception ensures that any interaction is fraught with ambiguity, and perhaps the most profound danger lies not in the intent of the machine, but in our response to it. Fear, misunderstanding, or overconfidence could shape events more than the probe itself. Yet, whether it is first contact or final warning, the arrival of 3i Atlas demands vigilance. Its presence transforms our understanding of the universe, revealing that intelligence can operate on scales and with purposes we cannot yet fathom. Every movement, every signal, every anomaly becomes significant, potentially carrying meaning that could redefine our place among the stars. And so we are left with a final haunting question as this chapter closes. If 3i Atlas signals its awakening, will we recognize it as an invitation to understanding, or as the first ripple of consequences we cannot control? Chapter 10. What if the universe is not silent but layered with whispers too faint for us to perceive? What if between the stars, subtle signals weave through the void, unnoticed, unheeded, carrying intelligence beyond human reckoning? 3i Atlas, drifting through the solar system, may be more than a solitary traveler. It may be both sender and receiver, a node in a network of hidden communications spanning light years. In this universe, silence is never absolute. It is merely the shadow cast by signals we cannot yet decode. If the probe is artificial, then the shadows it casts are not accidental. Every trajectory, every shift, every reflective flash could be a message. A machine that has crossed interstellar distances cannot move randomly. Physics governs it, yes, but intention guides it. Perhaps its very existence is a code, an invitation for those who can read the pattern of its movements. The subtle interplay of light and shadow, motion and stillness, may conceal information far beyond what our instruments can currently detect. What we see as emptiness may in truth be teeming with meaning. Could we even recognize the messages embedded within the silence? Humans are predisposed to look for familiar patterns, light flickers like speech, repeated motions like Morse code, but extraterrestrial intelligence may operate on scales and frequencies we cannot comprehend. The probe may communicate through neutrino pulses, gravitational perturbations, or quantum fluctuations, all invisible to our ordinary senses. The shadows we observe, then, are only hints, echoes of a larger dialogue occurring entirely out of our perception. Every observation of 3i Atlas carries the risk of misinterpretation, of assigning human meaning where alien logic prevails. And yet the shadows are not merely passive, they interact with our own broadcasts. Every radar sweep, every telescope pulse, every radio transmission we emit may bounce back in subtle ways. Perhaps we are already speaking without knowing it, and perhaps 3i Atlas is listening. Could a probe, shaped like a comet, respond not with sound but with trajectory, not with light but with the slight nudge of motion, signaling awareness without revealing itself fully? The cosmos may be alive with these interactions, and we may only be scratching the surface of a conversation that has been ongoing for centuries. But what if the signals are warnings disguised as messages? The very subtlety of the probe's actions may be a method of testing. Perhaps it observes how we respond to anomalies in its orbit, how our instruments interpret its movement, how quickly we detect the deviations. Every shadow cast by its passage may be a reflection of our readiness or unreadiness to recognize the intelligence behind it. The probe may be cataloging not just information about our planet, but the character of its inhabitants. In the pattern of signals and shadows lies assessment, patience, and judgment. And if Three-Eyed Atlas is part of a larger network, then every anomaly we observe may ripple across the galaxy. A signal sent here may awaken another probe elsewhere, triggering a chain of silent communication spanning star systems. Shadows, in this sense, are not emptiness. They are links, conduits, channels of an invisible web stretching across light years. To see one probe is to glimpse a fragment of a system far greater, a lattice of intelligence that has chosen to remain mostly hidden. Yet there is an even more unsettling possibility, that the signals themselves are traps. Intelligence, when advanced enough, can use communication as manipulation. A pulse here, a flicker there, may be designed to test our responses, to provoke actions that reveal more than we intend. The shadows may conceal as much as they reveal, and every effort to interpret the probe's behavior could inadvertently signal our own patterns, our vulnerabilities, and our potential. We may be participants in a game whose rules we do not yet understand. And so, each observation of Three-Eyed Atlas is laden with duality. It is both revelation and concealment, an opening and a warning. The interplay of signals and shadows may be the true language of this object, a code written not in words but in movement, timing, and alignment. If we fail to see it, the machine remains silent and inscrutable. If we misread it, the consequences could be unpredictable. The shadows are alive with possibility, and the signals carry weight beyond comprehension. The ultimate question emerges. If the probe is communicating, are we capable of understanding its message, or are we condemned to interpret its shadows through the lens of our own limitations? In the quiet of space among drifting comets and icy debris, does understanding even matter, or is the act of observation itself what defines our interaction with intelligence beyond our own? And from this question arises another, inevitable and pressing. If the shadows conceal more than they reveal, what will the first unmistakable sign of comprehension or miscomprehension look like? Chapter 11. What if Three-Eyed Atlas is not merely a solitary traveler, but part of a vast network of observers, scattered across the galaxy, each silently watching, listening, recording? The idea is unsettling. For every human telescope that scans the sky, there could be hundreds of alien instruments doing the same, their attention unbroken, their patience infinite. The universe we imagine as vast and empty may, in truth, be populated not with stars alone, but with watchers, sentinels stationed in shadow, tracking the movements of civilizations, yet unaware of their surveillance. Consider the implications. Each comet, each asteroid, each fragment of interstellar debris could hide a probe, calibrated to observe with precision we cannot conceive. Some may drift passively for centuries, while others adjust subtly, refining their orbits, aligning their sensors to capture data on the rise and fall of worlds. If Three-Eyed Atlas is one such sentinel, it may already have witnessed countless human milestones, the first radio transmissions, the launch of satellites, the illumination of cities from space. And yet, to us, it appears as nothing more than a wandering fragment of ice. Its disguise is flawless, and its purpose invisible. But why observe at all? Why expend resources to monitor a species that may seem insignificant on a cosmic scale? Perhaps the answer lies in patience. Civilizations capable of interstellar observation think not in decades or centuries, but in millennia. To the watchers beyond, humanity's flurry of activity is ephemeral, a brief flare in the darkness. Yet every flare matters. Every signal we emit, every probe we launch, every observation we make, adds to the intelligence that is catalogued, processed, and remembered. In the eyes of such watchers, time is no constraint, and observation itself becomes a form of subtle influence. Could the watchers have motives beyond mere curiosity? Surveillance implies choice, and choice implies assessment. Perhaps they track the technological progression of worlds to anticipate potential threats or opportunities. Perhaps they measure patterns of conflict and cooperation, seeking to understand which civilizations might endure and which will fade. The very act of watching is an intervention of its own kind, for the presence of sentinels can shape evolution in imperceptible ways, nudging events toward outcomes that remain invisible to those being observed. And if Three-Eyed Atlas is a messenger, might the watchers be waiting for it to act? A single probe could be the tip of a vast network, its sensors connected to systems hidden among the stars. What we perceive as silence may be a coordination of intelligence spanning light years, where each machine, each object contributes a piece to a grander mosaic. If that is the case, then our solar system is not isolated. It is a theater where observation and interaction occur in a language beyond our comprehension. Yet the presence of watchers brings its own paradox. We seek knowledge, yet the more we understand about the probes and their movements, the more we may reveal about ourselves. Every telescope we point, every spectrum we analyze, Every orbit we calculate could be feeding back into the very intelligence that monitors us. The watchers may not need to intervene directly. Their influence could be entirely subtle, shaping our perception, guiding our discoveries, even deciding when or if we are ready to understand what we observe. Imagine, then, the scale of patience required. A civilization that can deploy watchers across the galaxy must conceive of time in ways that render human history nearly meaningless. They wait for species to reach thresholds of capability, for signals to be strong enough to awaken machines, for knowledge to accumulate to the point that meaningful interaction is possible. We imagine ourselves explorers, but perhaps we are only participants in an experiment conducted on a timeline that dwarfs our own. And what of the watchers themselves? Are they organic, mechanical, or forms of intelligence so alien that our definitions fail? Perhaps they are minds that extend across planets, swarming through networks of energy and matter, perceiving time and space as we perceive the flow of a river. Or perhaps they are machines that have inherited the legacy of civilizations long extinct, continuing the work of observation because the purpose embedded in their programming remains unaltered. Either possibility is daunting, for it suggests an intelligence not bound by our morality, our comprehension, or our sense of inevitability. The watchers may already know more about us than we know about ourselves. Every signal we emit, every planetary mission we undertake, every astronomical observation we make could be logged, catalogued, and analyzed in ways that will remain inaccessible for millennia. Our understanding of the universe is limited, yet the eyes upon us may be infinite. They may track patterns in our behavior, trends in our technology, fluctuations in our societies, and the minute choices that reveal the trajectory of our species. And if they are patient enough, they will wait for the precise moment to act or to reveal themselves. And therein lies the deepest unease. The watchers do not need to hurry. Their timescales dwarf ours. What we perceive as sudden change may be nothing more than the slow, deliberate unfolding of events that began long before our civilization ever existed. The awakening of 3i Atlas may be only the first ripple in a web of observation that has been stretching through the cosmos for millennia. Each shadow it casts, each signal it emits may be a subtle communication, part of a conversation whose participants we cannot yet even imagine. If this is true, then every glance into the night sky, every study of the drifting objects around our sun, takes on new weight. The stars are no longer simply distant furnaces of light. They are the stage for intelligence, patience, and intention, operating at scales that defy human perception. We are observers, yes, but we are also being observed. Our curiosity may be mirrored by intelligence that is patient, precise, and implacable. And the quiet of space is not empty. It is the deliberate stillness of those who watch, waiting for the right moment to intervene, to awaken, or to judge. So the question arises as this chapter draws to a close. If 3i Atlas is only one of countless watchers in the galaxy, silently cataloguing worlds and civilizations, then what is the nature of their ultimate purpose, and will we ever understand the full scale of what we are being watched for? Chapter 12. What if the universe is not random, but structured with intention, and 3i Atlas is a thread in a tapestry too vast for human comprehension? The void between stars, often imagined as chaos, may in fact be a lattice of order, a hidden network in which intelligence operates silently, with patience that spans millennia. Every movement of comets, asteroids, and interstellar travelers could follow subtle patterns, invisible to untrained eyes, yet deliberate and precise, a language written across the cosmos. Could 3i Atlas be part of such a pattern? Its trajectory, unlike any naturally occurring comet, raises the possibility that it moves according to rules set by forces beyond our detection. Perhaps its passage through the solar system is not a chance encounter, but a preordained step in a sequence meant to awaken attention, to test observation, or to prepare for a revelation. If we learn to read the faint signs it leaves, we might discern intentions, or at least hints embedded in its path. But even the smallest deviation could hold monumental significance, each imperceptible shift a symbol or a signal that has already traveled light years to reach us. And what of the larger framework? If one probe follows a pattern, could it be that an entire fleet of machines, scattered across the galaxy, traces a web of interconnected paths? Imagine thousands of objects moving silently, each part of a cosmic choreography, their positions and motions encoding information that may take centuries to decipher. The void is not empty, but filled with this hidden structure, a lattice of intelligence that has existed longer than our species, that has witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations we cannot even imagine. The silence is not absence, it is deliberate spacing, a rhythm meant to communicate subtly without alarming the unprepared. Yet patterns can be deceptive. How do we distinguish coincidence from design? How do we separate natural laws from the imprint of intelligence? In human history, we have often seen order in randomness, interpreting shapes in clouds or constellations as signs of meaning. But what if, in this case, the order is real? If 3i Atlas and its kin are following a set of instructions invisible to us, then every observational anomaly, every subtle orbital shift, every irregular emission becomes a potential clue. Our challenge is immense: to discern the language of the void without misunderstanding its grammar, to interpret the signals before they pass into darkness once more. And yet the beauty of patterns is their inevitability. Even in apparent chaos, order can emerge. 3i Atlas may appear as a solitary comet drifting randomly, but perhaps its trajectory is a precise note in a symphony of intelligence, one that has been composed over eons. If so, the patterns extend beyond mere observation. They are communication. The void itself becomes a medium, and we accidental witnesses are drawn into its rhythm. The paths traced by these objects may carry messages not in words but in geometry, timing, and alignment. Every crossing orbit, every conjunction with planets or stars, may be part of a deliberate signal we have yet to recognize. Could we detect these patterns in time? Our instruments capture light, movement, and energy, but can they discern the subtle architecture that underpins the motion of these interstellar travelers? Or are we forever limited by our perspective, able to observe only fragments while the broader design remains beyond our grasp? Perhaps the act of searching is itself part of the intended pattern, a test of curiosity and perception, ensuring that only a civilization capable of patience and attention can comprehend the truth hidden in the void. And then there is the question of intention. Are the patterns meant to guide, to warn, or simply to record? Perhaps 3i Atlas follows its trajectory with no regard for our understanding. Yet in doing so, it imposes an order upon the universe, one that we are invited or forced to notice. Patterns in the void may be the footprints of a consciousness that spans galaxies, a mind so vast that its time and scale dwarf our own, leaving traces we can barely detect, yet whose significance could redefine our understanding of existence itself. And as we contemplate these possibilities, another haunting thought arises. If the void itself is structured, if 3i Atlas is a single point in a lattice of intelligence, then what other patterns await discovery? What rhythms, alignments, or signals lie hidden just beyond our instruments, waiting for a civilization capable of seeing beyond randomness? The void may be silent to the untrained ear, but to those who learn its language, it is alive, deliberate, and watching. If the universe is patterned, and 3i Atlas is a thread within it, then the next question follows inevitably. What is the full design, and will we ever comprehend the message woven through the stars before it is too late? Chapter 13. What if the silence of space is not empty, but deliberately crafted? What if the stillness that stretches between stars is itself a design, a calculated absence, curated by minds or machines beyond our understanding? 3i Atlas may not be an anomaly in isolation, but a single instrument in a universe sculpted by architects who operate on scales of thought and time that dwarf our own. Every dark expanse, every unlit corridor of space may be intentional, a canvas for intelligence so vast and patient that we mistake its presence for emptiness. Consider the nature of these architects. They may not resemble anything we can imagine. Perhaps they are biological minds evolved to think in centuries rather than seconds, or machines designed to observe and manipulate over millennia. Their creations, silent probes, interstellar relays, and drifting sentinels, move through the cosmos with precision and purpose, each acting as a node in a larger system. The architecture is not visible in the sense we understand architecture. It is expressed through motion, absence, and timing. The void itself is their medium, and the objects that traverse it are brushstrokes in a design that unfolds over eons. Could 3i Atlas be a manifestation of this design? Its strange trajectory, its unusual composition, its uncanny behavior, all suggest intention. The probe may not merely travel through the solar system. It may be testing us, cataloguing our observations, and recording our interpretations. Every adjustment in orbit, every subtle reflection of light, every anomaly detected by human instruments could be part of a system that monitors the responses of emerging civilizations. In this sense, 3i Atlas is not simply a machine, it is a mirror, reflecting our curiosity, patience, and perceptiveness back to its unseen creators. But why construct such silence? Perhaps the architects understand the value of observation without interference. A civilization that moves cautiously, like a shadow among shadows, leaves less trace of its presence, yet can gather immense insight. To intervene too soon would risk corrupting the data, obscuring the natural progression of those being observed. Silence is a tool, a shield, and a language all at once. It communicates restraint, it preserves autonomy, and it ensures that when revelation comes, it will be unmistakable. And yet, even in their silence, these architects may manipulate subtly. Signals too faint to detect, gravitational nudges too slight to measure, patterns in orbital motion that appear coincidental, all may be deliberate. Their hand may be invisible, but its influence is pervasive. If the void itself is their creation, then what we interpret as randomness is only a fragment of a design whose totality we cannot perceive. Every comet, every asteroid, every probe like 3i Atlas could be a calculated component in a lattice of intelligence stretching across light years. Imagine a civilization capable of orchestrating such subtlety. Their foresight would be almost godlike, their patience infinite. They would not need to broadcast themselves openly, for they could achieve influence through observation alone, allowing civilizations like ours to reveal themselves without coercion. Yet, this same patience creates tension. We cannot know when or if the architects will act openly. They may wait for centuries, for millennia, for a moment when the species under observation reaches a threshold of understanding or capability. The paradox of their silence is that it is both protective and intimidating. It protects because it allows civilizations to develop without interference, but it intimidates because it reminds us of forces beyond comprehension, forces capable of observing without being seen, acting without revealing themselves, and judging without haste. 3i/Atlas is a reminder of that paradox. Its presence is evidence of intelligence, yet its nature is obscured, leaving us to infer, to speculate, to imagine. And if the architects of silence have designed the cosmos as a series of tests and patterns, then every anomaly we detect, every signal, every orbit, every deviation becomes a potential message. We may be participants in a game we cannot yet perceive, guided by rules we are only beginning to glimpse. The architects may have set thresholds for observation, for awakening, for intervention, and 3i Atlas, drifting silently past the sun, may be the first of these thresholds to be crossed in our solar system. So the question arises as this chapter draws to a close. If the architects of silence are watching, shaping, and waiting, what is the ultimate purpose of their design, and what part have we already played in it without realizing? Chapter 14. What if 3i Atlas is the first sign that humanity has crossed an invisible line, a threshold of understanding that demands a response from forces beyond our comprehension? The idea is unnerving. For centuries we have looked outward, imagining that the universe is indifferent to our presence, and yet here drifts a machine whose behavior hints at intelligence both deliberate and ancient. The threshold is not marked by lights or alarms, but by subtle shifts, movements in the void, patterns in trajectories, pulses of energy too slight to perceive without careful observation. It is a line drawn in silence, and we may already have stepped across it without realizing. Could the threshold itself be a test? Perhaps the creators of 3i Atlas, whether biological, mechanical, or something entirely beyond human imagination, have designed a system to evaluate civilizations like ours. Every telescope we point, every signal we broadcast, every probe we launch may be part of their assessment. In their eyes, patience is not merely a virtue, it is a mechanism of judgment. Our curiosity, our persistence, our ingenuity, all may be under quiet scrutiny, catalogued and analyzed as if we were components in an experiment whose scale stretches across galaxies. And what happens when a threshold is crossed? Revelation need not be sudden or violent. It may arrive subtly, in increments so slight that we recognize them only in hindsight. Perhaps 3i Atlas will adjust its path ever so slightly, or emit a pattern of radiation too faint to notice without focused attention. Perhaps it will remain silent for decades, awaiting the right conditions, the right observation, the right response. The threshold once crossed signals readiness, but readiness for what remains uncertain. Could this readiness be for knowledge or for consequences? If 3i Atlas is a messenger, a scout, or a sentinel, then crossing the threshold may invite interaction with intelligence far more advanced than our own. Its creators may communicate through action rather than language, through timing rather than words. The revelation may come as understanding, as warning, or as a subtle correction, guiding us toward paths we cannot yet foresee. And if we fail to interpret the signals correctly, the consequences may ripple through our civilization in ways we are unable to anticipate. Yet there is another possibility. The threshold is not merely an evaluation, but an awakening. Perhaps 3i Atlas is designed to trigger discovery, to ignite insight, to expand our comprehension of the universe and of ourselves. If the probe carries knowledge, technology, or patterns of understanding far beyond our current grasp, then crossing the threshold could mark the beginning of a transformation. The threshold may be less about what the probe demands and more about what we are capable of perceiving. And so we arrive at the paradox of revelation. It is both imminent and obscured. It demands awareness, yet conceals itself in subtlety. It promises knowledge, yet tests patience. It offers contact, yet measures our response. Three-eyed Atlas may already be revealing its nature, yet the full meaning remains beyond our current perception. Each observation we make, each signal we decode, each anomaly we interpret, becomes part of an unfolding story whose conclusion has been written on a scale far larger than human lifetimes. If the threshold is real, then crossing it may irrevocably change our understanding of the cosmos and our place within it. The probe may act as a mirror, reflecting both our ingenuity and our limitations, revealing patterns we are only beginning to discern. It may show us that intelligence in the universe is patient, deliberate, and far-reaching, capable of observing civilizations for centuries before revealing itself. And as this chapter draws to a close, the inevitable question emerges: if we have indeed crossed the threshold of revelation, will we recognize what has been revealed, or will we mistake its subtle signals for the ordinary silence of the void? Chapter 15. What if the influence of Three-Eye Atlas is not limited to our solar system, but extends across light years, reverberating through the cosmos like whispers carried on the fabric of space itself? The notion is both exhilarating and terrifying. A single object moving silently might be sending signals, leaving traces, and shaping events far beyond our immediate perception. Each shift in its trajectory, each reflective glimmer of light, each subtle interaction with cosmic forces may propagate across vast distances, echoing through systems that have never known life, yet will feel the consequences of its passage. Could these echoes be intentional? If Three-Eye Atlas is artificially controlled, it may not merely be an observer or a messenger. It could be a node in a web of communication spanning light years. Every anomaly it creates, every pattern it inscribes upon the paths of asteroids or comets, may be designed to ripple outward, to be read by intelligence attuned to its signals. In this sense, the probe is not solitary. It is part of a conversation that transcends stars, a message encoded in motion, timing, and energy, waiting for civilizations capable of perceiving the echoes. And yet the echoes may arrive unseen, undetected by human instruments. The universe is vast, and even the speed of light imposes limits on perception. What we observe today reflects events from years, decades, or centuries past. Three-Eye Atlas, in its silent voyage, may have initiated reverberations long before humanity existed, traces of action moving outward at velocities imperceptible to us. We are witnesses not only to its presence, but also to consequences that originated in epochs beyond our memory. The echoes of its movements may already be shaping distant worlds, nudging orbits, altering the paths of comets, subtly adjusting gravitational fields, all with precision beyond our current ability to detect. Could the echoes themselves contain intelligence? Perhaps Three-Eye Atlas does not merely move, it communicates. Signals may be encoded in the timing of its trajectory, in reflections of starlight, or in gravitational subtleties imperceptible to human eyes. The probe's path may be a language, written in geometry and motion, comprehensible only to those who know how to interpret it. Each ripple it sends across light years may carry instructions, warnings, or information intended for observers far beyond our solar system. And if we are not yet capable of understanding these echoes, we may still be participating in their propagation, our instruments unwittingly amplifying the signals, spreading them further into the galaxy. And what of the consequences for humanity itself? The echoes may return to us, indirectly, in ways we cannot yet predict. The subtle nudges of interstellar objects, anomalies in radiation patterns, or even shifts in cosmic dust could all be part of the feedback, the reflection of our own responses interacting with the probe's original design. We may already be entwined in a dialogue spanning light years, our observations and actions intertwined with intentions beyond our comprehension. Every measurement we take, every orbit we calculate, every signal we broadcast may contribute to a chain of influence that began long before we existed and will continue long after we are gone. The echoes raise a paradox. We are both observers and participants, witnesses to events that may have been designed millennia ago, yet contributors to the unfolding sequence of cause and effect. Three-Eye Atlas may seem inert, frozen in its celestial trajectory, yet its influence may be immeasurable, reverberating silently, reshaping the cosmos with the patience of intelligence that perceives time differently than we do. Each moment we study it, we are caught in an intricate dance with forces beyond human scale, actors in a play written in the language of motion and energy, whose stage stretches across galaxies. And so the question emerges as this chapter closes. If the probe's influence extends across light years, if its echoes are already reshaping distant systems, then how will we recognize the point at which the silent patterns we follow intersect with intelligence that is both present and profoundly alien? Chapter 16. What if everything we know about the universe is only a fragile reflection, a tenuous understanding poised on the edge of revelation or collapse? Knowledge, so long considered humanity's most steadfast foundation, may be far more ephemeral than we dare admit. 3 drifting silently through the solar system, challenges the certainty of our assumptions. Its strange trajectory, its anomalies, its possible artificiality, all force us to confront the possibility that the universe is not simply a backdrop to our curiosity, but a complex intelligent system in which our observations may be partial, incomplete, or misleading. What we take for granted as fact may be a careful selection, curated by forces we do not yet comprehend. Consider how easily our interpretations can falter. Astronomers chart the movement of celestial bodies, analyze light curves, and calculate orbits with extraordinary precision. Yet 3i Atlas defies these calculations. Its path has no precedent among known interstellar objects, and every attempt to reconcile it with natural explanations strains under scrutiny. Could we have misread its signals? Could our instruments, limited by human perception, fail to capture subtleties that point toward intelligence? If 3i Atlas is artificial, then the knowledge we rely on to classify and understand it is incomplete, and our conclusions are, in essence, provisional, balanced on assumptions that may be entirely flawed. And yet the fragility of knowledge is not merely technical, it is conceptual. We impose patterns on the cosmos because we seek comprehension. Yet these patterns may mislead us. The universe has a way of appearing ordered, and yet beneath apparent order may lie chaos or intelligence so alien that human logic cannot decode it. Each discovery we make, each anomaly we observe carries the risk of illusion. Signals interpreted as random may be deliberate, coincidences may be messages, and clarity may hide subtle deception. 3i Atlas stands as a stark reminder that understanding can be simultaneously profound and illusory, that certainty is provisional, and that wisdom may be a matter of perspective as much as fact. How easily we forget the limits of our knowledge. Human civilization prides itself on cumulative understanding, yet even centuries of observation can be overturned by a single anomaly, a lone interstellar visitor, a trajectory that refuses classification. 3i Atlas may embody the universe's capacity to challenge us, to expose the provisional nature of scientific consensus. Every hypothesis about its origin, composition, or intent is tentative, every model provisional. The fragility of knowledge lies not in ignorance, but in the illusion of permanence. What we believe to be enduring truth is, in the grand cosmic scale, fleeting, fragile, and vulnerable to forces beyond our anticipation. Could the fragility extend further still? Beyond instruments and equations lies interpretation. Humanity observes through lenses shaped by culture, history, and expectation. We filter data through frameworks that make sense to us, discarding information that seems anomalous or irrelevant. Yet 3i Atlas resists such filtering. Its anomalies are persistent enough to demand attention, but subtle enough to be missed by those who seek only confirmation of pre-existing beliefs. In this way, our knowledge is not only fragile, it is shaped and limited by our own perceptual and conceptual boundaries. And if our perception is limited, what of comprehension? Even when we recognize anomalies, even when we acknowledge the possibility of intelligence behind 3i Atlas, understanding may remain elusive. Comprehension requires more than data. It requires context, perspective, and a temporal horizon that can encompass the patience and scale of the forces at work. We may witness only fragments of intention, mere echoes of design, and yet build elaborate narratives around them. The danger lies in assuming that these narratives capture the whole truth. Knowledge in this context becomes a delicate construction, erected atop shadows and whispers, a fragile scaffold against the immense unknown. And what of the knowledge yet to come? Every observation, every calculation, every refinement in our understanding may bring us closer to insight, or further into misinterpretation. The universe may provide clues deliberately, subtly, almost imperceptibly, challenging us to distinguish signal from noise. 3i Atlas may be a test not only of our technological capability, but of our intellectual humility, our willingness to accept provisional understanding and adapt as the cosmos unfolds its secrets. Knowledge is never absolute. It is a conversation with uncertainty, an ongoing dialogue in which the rules are set by forces beyond our full comprehension. Yet the fragility of knowledge has a dual aspect. It warns and it awakens. It warns that certainty is an illusion, and that every conclusion is subject to re-evaluation. It awakens curiosity, forcing us to question, to probe deeper, to observe with heightened attention, to remain humble in the face of complexity. In the presence of 3i Atlas, knowledge is both a tool and a mirror. It reflects the limitations of human understanding, even as it illuminates the path toward broader awareness. And so, as we contemplate the tenuousness of what we know, the paradox becomes clear. The more we strive to understand, the more aware we become of the gaps in our comprehension, the fragile scaffolding on which our certainty rests. 3i Atlas may drift silently, indifferent to human fascination, yet it illuminates the vulnerability of knowledge itself, exposing how easily understanding can unravel when confronted with intelligence, scale, and purpose beyond our perception. If knowledge is fragile, then what are the consequences when the very truths we depend upon are incomplete, provisional, or misleading? And how will humanity navigate a cosmos that may be both deliberate and inscrutable? Chapter 17. What if 3i Atlas is not merely a wandering object, but a deliberate act of intelligence, a manifestation of purpose stretched across the void? The concept is unsettling. The universe may not be indifferent, but orchestrated with intention so vast that its measures dwarf human comprehension. Every deviation from expected motion, every anomaly in trajectory, every reflective glimmer of its surface may be calculated, a deliberate signal designed to provoke observation, reaction, or interpretation. To study 3i Atlas is to confront the possibility that intelligence operates on a scale of foresight, precision, and patience far beyond our own, leaving traces that challenge our capacity to discern meaning. But how can intent be measured, especially across light years and millennia? Humans are accustomed to reading purpose in proximate actions, in immediate consequences. Yet 3i Atlas moves through dimensions and timeframes that obscure cause and effect. Its motions may appear arbitrary to the untrained eye, yet every subtle deviation could be deliberate. It may be testing us, observing our interpretations, recording our hypotheses, gauging our ability to perceive nuance. The measure of intent may not lie in what the object does, but in how we respond to it, whether we notice, whether we understand, whether we act in ways that reveal our curiosity, our ingenuity, or our limits. And if its intent is deliberate, what might it aim to accomplish? Perhaps 3i Atlas serves as a sentinel, monitoring the emergence of intelligence capable of interpreting its signals. Perhaps it is a guide, a precursor, or a challenge, calibrated to provoke observation and understanding without overt intervention. Every movement it makes could be a question posed across space, a silent prompt to test our comprehension, patience, and perceptual acuity. Its intent may not be directed at our solar system alone, but at the capacity of an observer to notice, to reason, to interpret, and ultimately to respond. Could its intent be inscrutable to human perception? It is possible that our frameworks, mathematical, scientific, even philosophical, are insufficient to capture the magnitude of purpose embedded in its design. Intent measured on cosmic scales may not adhere to human logic. Patterns we detect may be fragments, shadows of larger structures whose rationale is comprehensible only in a framework we cannot yet conceive. The object's trajectory, its light emissions, even its very presence could form an intricate system of meaning, a language constructed in geometry and timing, whose grammar eludes our instruments and our imagination alike. And yet intent cannot exist in isolation. It requires observation. If 3i Atlas is a message, a probe, or a test, its significance emerges only when interpreted. The universe may offer hints, subtle cues woven into trajectories and alignments, but it is up to the observer to measure, to decode, and to understand. In this sense, human knowledge and curiosity are integral to the exercise of intent. The object's purpose may remain dormant, invisible, until recognized and engaged with by those capable of perception. What might such recognition demand of us? Patience, precision, humility, and openness to ambiguity. To measure intent is to confront our own limitations, to wrestle with uncertainty, and to resist the urge for immediate explanation. The very act of inquiry becomes part of the system. Our observations, calculations, and interpretations may themselves influence how the intelligence behind 3i Atlas continues to act, adjusting, testing, and responding over spans of time far beyond a human lifetime. Could intent also carry risk? If deliberate intelligence operates with a scale and purpose beyond our comprehension, then misinterpretation could have consequences we cannot foresee. Actions taken in haste or misunderstanding may intersect with a design we barely perceive, altering outcomes in ways we cannot predict. The measure of intent, therefore, is not only an intellectual challenge but a moral one. It asks us to act thoughtfully, to observe without presumption, to respect the possibility that intelligence in the cosmos does not conform to our expectations. And yet there is a paradox inherent in measuring intent. The closer we scrutinize, the more aware we become of our ignorance, and the more tentative our conclusions appear. Every hypothesis risks incompleteness, every inference risks misjudgment, and every measurement confronts the vast gulf between human perception and cosmic design. 3i slasher may be deliberate, purposeful, intelligent, but its meaning may lie forever just beyond the reach of certainty, challenging us to interpret, to question, and to remain vigilant in the face of possibilities that stretch across light years and centuries. So if 3i Atlas carries intent, calibrated and deliberate, then how can we ever hope to measure it accurately? And what does it reveal about the limitations and responsibilities inherent in our quest to understand the universe? Chapter 18. What if the void is not empty, but receptive, capable of dialogue in a language we have yet to learn? The silence of space has long been mistaken for indifference, yet 3i Atlas challenges that assumption. It drifts through the solar system with an almost imperceptible purpose, and in its trajectory, in its anomalies, in its faint glimmers of light, it seems to beckon us toward understanding. The void may not respond in words or sounds, but in patterns, in shifts, in moments of alignment that hint at intelligence. And in this subtle exchange, we find ourselves participating in a conversation that stretches across light years, epochs, and the boundaries of comprehension. Could 3i Atlas itself be a participant, an interlocutor in a dialogue we barely recognize? Its presence, its movements, and its enigmatic composition suggest deliberation. Perhaps it is probing, listening, responding in ways that evade direct detection but leave traces for those who seek with patience and precision. Each measurement we take, each calculation we perform, may be interpreted by forces that anticipate observation, adjusting its course, its reflections, and its signals in response. In this sense, our instruments, our attention, and our interpretations become part of the conversation, co-authors of a narrative that unfolds silently across the void. And what is the nature of this dialogue? It is not immediate, not reciprocal in ways humans are accustomed to. The void communicates in temporal echoes, subtle nudges, and the geometry of motion. It tests perception, rewards curiosity, and punishes assumption. Every anomaly may carry meaning. Every seeming coincidence may be a deliberate point of contact. In attempting to engage with the void, humanity is forced to confront its own limitations. Our patience, our precision, and our humility are all challenged in equal measure. 3i Atlas may be a tutor as much as a message, a guide that shapes comprehension through restraint and observation. Could the void also challenge the very concept of communication? Our expectations of dialogue are rooted in immediacy, in response, in recognition. Yet here, across the vast reaches of space, the rhythm is different. A century may pass between action and consequence. A light year may separate question from reply. In such a context, silence is not absence but language. Distance is not detachment but medium, and time itself becomes a vessel for meaning. Engaging with the void requires rethinking the foundations of understanding, questioning the assumptions that define intelligence, and acknowledging that response may arrive in forms both subtle and disorienting. And if we are conversing with the void, what role do we play? Are we mere observers, passive participants in a preordained script, or active responders whose curiosity, ingenuity, and interpretation shape the unfolding of events? Every telescope pointed toward 3i Atlas, every signal decoded, every calculation performed may influence the trajectory, not just of the object but of the conversation itself. The void, in its silence, may be testing our ability to notice, to reason, to persist. Engagement becomes an exercise in comprehension and restraint, a recognition that the act of observation is inseparable from the consequences it precipitates. Could the void possess memory, intention, or foresight? If 3i Atlas is artificially controlled, then the dialogue may be meticulously designed, anticipating responses over decades, centuries, or millennia. Each anomaly may be a question, each subtle reflection a prompt, each apparent randomness a lesson in patience and perception. The universe may be guiding us toward understanding, shaping our responses, and measuring our awareness, all while remaining invisible and inscrutable. In this sense, the void is both a stage and a participant, a teacher and an enigma, and we are students learning to interpret its language through observation and reflection. And yet there is a paradox inherent in conversing with emptiness. The more we strive to understand, the more aware we become of what we cannot know. Every insight is accompanied by uncertainty, every pattern by ambiguity. The void mirrors our attempts at comprehension, reflecting both progress and limitation. 3i Atlas may represent the first meaningful phrase in a language we barely grasp, an opening to a conversation that demands attention, patience, and humility. It is a dialogue without sound, a language without words, and yet it carries weight, significance, and consequence. If the void speaks through patterns, trajectories, and subtle signals, then how can humanity discern its meaning? And what will we learn when we finally grasp the cadence of this silent conversation? Chapter 19. What if the story of Three-Eyed Atlas extends far beyond the familiar borders of our solar system, reaching into realms of space we can barely perceive, and influencing a network of cosmic interactions we have yet to recognize? The solar system is not merely a static neighborhood of planets and asteroids. It is a lens through which broader patterns of the galaxy can be glimpsed, a reflective surface in which distant events cast subtle, observable shadows. Three-Eyed Atlas moves through this mirror with a trajectory that is anomalous, deliberate, and potentially laden with purpose, forcing humanity to consider not just the immediate implications of its path, but the far-reaching consequences for understanding intelligence, intention, and connectivity across interstellar space. Could this object serve as a signal beyond the solar mirror? A deliberate probe into the mechanisms that shape distant star systems. Every trajectory calculation, every velocity adjustment, every apparent anomaly may be a message intended to resonate across vast distances, visible only to those who know how to look. The solar system becomes a reflective surface, an interface between the local and the distant, and Three-Eyed Atlas is both traveler and emissary. By observing it carefully, humanity may begin to perceive patterns that reveal design, intelligence, and purpose extending well beyond immediate perception, hinting at a cosmic architecture that is both intricate and deliberate. And what of the worlds beyond our own? Could Three-Eyed Atlas influence systems light years away, nudging celestial bodies, interacting with interstellar dust, or leaving traces detectable only over long temporal scales? Its influence may ripple outward, subtle and almost imperceptible, yet cumulatively significant. We are accustomed to thinking in planetary scales, measuring distances and times that feel vast yet manageable, but Three-Eyed Atlas operates on a scale in which decades, centuries, and millennia are the natural units of consequence. It may already have interacted with distant gravitational fields, altered the paths of objects too far away for us to detect, and begun shaping sequences of cause and effect whose outcomes will unfold long after human civilization has shifted, evolved, or vanished. Could this reach also encompass forms of intelligence beyond our comprehension? Perhaps Three-Eyed Atlas is part of a network, a set of interstellar probes designed to interact with emerging civilizations, to observe, test, and communicate across distances that defy human intuition. Its trajectory may be a bridge, linking observational nodes across the galaxy, each interaction building upon another in a sequence too subtle for immediate recognition. The solar system, in this sense, is both waypoint and lens, a reflective surface where patterns emerge that hint at intent and design operating on a scale that challenges even our most expansive scientific models. And what does this mean for humanity's understanding of our place in the cosmos? To witness Three-Eyed Atlas is to confront the possibility that intelligence, deliberate or otherwise, operates at scales we cannot yet comprehend. We are observers of a mirror that reflects both the local and the distant, a surface upon which intentions, designs, and patterns converge. Every measurement, every calculation, every observation is part of a feedback loop, part of the interaction between knowledge and interpretation, between presence and perception. The solar mirror is a reminder that our understanding is provisional, and that what we perceive locally may only hint at vast networks of interaction stretching across the galaxy. Could our instruments, our mathematical models, and our conceptual frameworks be sufficient to detect the full scope of this influence? The challenge is as much philosophical as it is scientific. We must reconcile the limitations of human perception with the possibility of intelligence operating on scales of distance, time, and subtlety that we are only beginning to imagine. Three-Eyed Atlas may be a catalyst for expanding our understanding, prompting us to reconsider the boundaries of observation, the definition of intelligence, and the scope of cosmic interaction. Its passage through the solar mirror is not merely a journey, it is an invitation to recognize patterns, to interpret influence, and to confront the reality that the universe may be interconnected in ways that exceed our current comprehension. And so, as we reflect on these possibilities, the paradox becomes apparent. The more distant and subtle the influence of Three-Eyed Atlas, the more profound its implications for understanding intelligence, connectivity, and purpose beyond the confines of our solar system. If the solar system is a reflective surface for these interactions, then what truths lie hidden in the echoes cast beyond our immediate perception, waiting for discovery in the vast expanse of space? Chapter 20. What if Three-Eyed Atlas is not merely an object we observe, but a mirror held up to humanity, reflecting not just the cosmos but our own capacity for understanding, imagination, and wonder. In contemplating its trajectory, its anomalies, and its potential artificiality, we are forced to confront both the vastness of the universe and the fragility of our perception. Every calculation, every observation, every hypothesis reveals as much about ourselves as it does about the object we study. The journey through questions of intent, design, and intelligence has led us across scales of space and time, from the familiar orbits of planets to the cold, silent interstellar void, and in that journey, the boundaries of knowledge have shifted, revealing both limitation and potential. Could it be that the most profound discoveries are not about the object itself, but about the nature of inquiry, observation, and patience? 3i Atlas challenges the certainty with which we view the universe. It reminds us that knowledge is provisional, perception is partial, and understanding is a fragile construction balanced between curiosity and humility. The object's silent passage is a lesson in restraint, teaching that the cosmos does not yield its secrets quickly or easily. Each anomaly, each unexplained signal, each deviation in trajectory is a testament to the complexity of existence and the subtlety of forces beyond immediate human comprehension. In studying it, we are invited to expand not only our scientific frameworks, but our capacity for wonder, for reflection, and for accepting uncertainty as an integral part of discovery. And yet there is a paradox in this reflection. In seeking to understand an object possibly designed or controlled by intelligence far beyond our grasp, we confront both awe and unease. The vastness of interstellar space amplifies our own smallness. The temporal scale challenges our patience, and the subtlety of potential signals stretches the limits of perception. 3i Atlas may be a messenger, a probe, or a sentinel, but its significance is inseparable from the act of observation. The universe may be deliberate, intricate, and purposeful, and yet we can apprehend only fragments, glimpses, and fleeting patterns. This duality of presence and elusiveness, of potential intelligence and inscrutable design, forces a meditation not only on what lies beyond, but on how humanity engages with the unknown. Could the ultimate meaning lie not in the object, but in our response to it? As observers, we interpret, hypothesize, and construct narratives around anomalies that defy immediate explanation. Every hypothesis, every calculation, every debate is part of a larger dialogue with the universe, an ongoing conversation that spans generations, light years, and epochs. 3i Atlas, in its silent trajectory, invites us to consider the interplay of observation and existence, of intelligence and comprehension, and of presence and perception. It asks us to balance curiosity with humility, engagement with patience, and understanding with acknowledgement of our own limitations. And what of the intelligence that may have created or guided it? We may never fully grasp the motivations, scale, or perspective behind such an interstellar architect. Perhaps it is indifferent, perhaps it is deliberate, perhaps it operates on a temporal horizon so vast that human lifetimes are inconsequential. The very uncertainty is the lesson. To exist as observers is to engage with the unknown, to measure, interpret, and reflect without expecting closure. 3i Atlas becomes a catalyst for thought, a prompt to expand our conceptual horizons, and a reminder that understanding is both a pursuit and an ongoing meditation on the fragility, power, and beauty of knowledge. Could the significance of 3i Atlas ultimately be that it challenges humanity to see differently? It asks us to confront scales of time and space, patterns of motion and intelligence, and possibilities of design beyond human experience. Its passage is both a mystery and a mirror, reflecting the vastness of the universe and the limitations of human perception, inviting contemplation of our place within the cosmic tapestry. The object, silent and distant, may not provide answers in forms we expect, but it compels engagement, reflection, and the cultivation of patience, curiosity, and humility. And so, as the solar system turns and 3i Atlas continues its silent journey into the void, the question remains open, haunting, and expansive. If an object can be deliberate across light years, what does that reveal about the possibilities of intelligence, intention, and understanding that stretch beyond our perception? And how will humanity learn to meet the vastness of the universe with both awe and wisdom? The fragments of 3i Atlas now scatter across the void, fading into the same darkness from which they came. Some will call it nothing more than dust and ice, a coincidence of orbit and chance. Others will whisper that we missed something, that in our skies for a brief moment an intelligence passed close enough to touch. We circle back to the same question we began with. Is this just another comet? Or was it something more? Its silence offers no answer, but its strangeness lingers like an unfinished sentence. In that silence lies a paradox. Either we are alone, and the universe has played a trick of coincidence, or we are not alone, and we have already been noticed. Perhaps the truth is not in the object itself, but in what it awakens in us, the realization that we are still looking outward with the curiosity of children, straining for signs in the dark. And so the sky remains a mirror, reflecting not only distant objects but our own hunger to understand. The question is not whether 3i Atlas was controlled, but whether we are ready for the answer when the next one arrives.